The Deep South's oldest rivalry, game 129 in the series, is complete. The Georgia Bulldogs take down the Auburn Tigers in Athens 31-13. We're here to talk about it. Your reaction show, a little bit of therapy if you need it. We're going to talk about the scores, the stats, all of that in between. Let's get into all those things right now. War Eagle Auburn family and a special War Eagle and welcome to you that you consider yourselves part of our E2C network family. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're live, whether you're on the replay, however you got here, whenever you got here. Thanks for hanging out with us and being part of this little family within the Auburn family. For today's live stream, we have a reaction live stream for you. One where we are talking about our initial thoughts to the result, obviously, but also to the stats, storylines, things that we just witnessed in Game 6 for the Auburn Tigers by the score of 31-13. The Tigers fall in Athens. Not that much of a surprise, to be honest with you. And I think there's probably a lot of good to take away with a lot of the bad. Frankly, it could have been much, 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 much worse at times. So we'll talk about all of those things. I'm sure many of you have opinions out there. So let's jump into it. Make sure as you're coming into the stream, whether you're on the live portion of this or the replay, we'd appreciate you smashing the like button for us, not for the team. If you don't want to do it for the team, do it for us. And also, if you haven't subscribed, that's also a good way to stay connected with us. Follow on Facebook, however you're getting this content. Make sure you're following in whatever fashion that is for you. Let us know you're here too. Check in with us where you're watching from, and let us know with the War Eagle what part of the world you are checking in from. All right, so the result, obviously not what we wanted. Obviously, I think what the majority of us expected was a decent enough win for Georgia. You know, I think minus one or two plays, this is a game that comes down to a touchdown, maybe a little more than a touchdown. Georgia is by far a much better team at this point in the season, and just as far as we've seen this far completely, than Auburn. And I think that showed definitely. This is one of those games where I look at the score and having watched the context of the games, I go, makes a lot of sense what we know about these two teams currently at this time. So as we always like to do, and we're trying to do better at, I do want to make sure I start the stream off by giving congrats to the Georgia Bulldogs. Happy homecoming to you. I was a little bit worried at times for you guys. I thought you might have bit off more than you could chew. But congrats to you, and certainly a well-played game by the Georgia Bulldogs responding after their loss to the Alabama Crimson Tide last week. Certainly, we will talk about that. And I will caution you all. This is for those of you that are watching live. I'm going to ask you guys to keep the commentary about what is happening in other games to a minimal. I know you maybe want to talk about that, celebrate. We're going to try to keep our focus right here because the only thing that matters, truthfully, is the Auburn Tigers and the things that are important to us. So I know that is something that is important out there. All right, we got a lot of good folks checking in with us today. Good to see a lot of you here already checking in. Our Captain Optimism is always Kevin. We should all be more like Kevin. Definitely. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. I think probably the two biggest storylines of the game are the fourth down mistake, probably most likely by Peyton Thorne, it looks like. And I think that's his one big mistake of the game. Otherwise, I think he probably does a decent job enough to put us into position to compete in this game. I'm not going to say to win because it's a 13-31 win for Georgia. May I note as well that that it's very close to what I predicted. One more touchdown for each of these teams. I know they got the field goal at the end, kind of messed it up. My score would have been 100% perfect. Stan, I'm not going to pick on you. I am picking on you, but I'm not. I hope you understand. It's never War Eagle anyway. It's War Eagle always. Neil wants to give a shout out to Falk. I think that is, I think that's appropriate, especially where I think, and I hope the majority of you are at in this game is kind of not accepting of this, not being happy about a loss, but looking for those things that we can utilize to move forward. Falk is awesome. He is. He had a great game. What a dirty hit that they had on him at the towards the end of the game there. He had a monster game, being involved in sacks, tackles for loss, just blowing up plays. He really is showing why he has the respect of so many of his teammates, why he got the respect of his coaches to be a representative of SEC Media Days this year. So you are watching, I think, and a lot of us asked these questions at the beginning of the season, who are going to be the people that rise up this year? I told you, watch for Keldrick Falk. Here he is right now having a great game. Jarquez also had a great game, having that run he busted free on, which is really just a breath of fresh air. I think you could feel the sigh of relief in everybody out there. Lambert Smith has a great game too. Folks, and somebody pointed it out earlier, no turnovers. No turnovers. What are the two biggest things that we've talked about for several weeks now that Auburn's had an issue with? Third and Auburn, third and long, and turnovers. No turnovers tonight. You could make a case that the third downs weren't all that great tonight. Maybe I can get to. Let's see. Georgia was 7 of 14 on third down for 50%. So not great. Auburn was 4 of 12 if you want to use that by comparison. Makes sense there at the home. It's kind of what they should do. I walk away from this, and yeah, Jason, you're on the verge of getting blocked there, my man. I walk away from this a game. Georgia did what it was supposed to do, like just kind of took care of business. Auburn, I think at times showed there was an opportunity for them to do a little bit more than people expected of them. So I'm not sitting here trying to claim moral victories, all that stuff, but that's where Auburn's at this point in the season, where bowl eligibility does look a little bit like a scary thing at this point. You've got to look for those things, especially against teams on the road versus Georgia. Can we just take a second and just talk about the reality of what Auburn had against them in this game? You're facing the used to be higher ranked team. I forget where they were ranked. Was it number 1? I think it was number 1. Maybe it was number 2, but they're number 5 currently team on the road. They've made you their homecoming. Everything is in their favor. Auburn kind of walks out of here a little bit, not with your head held high, but with just a little bit, all right, we can compete with some of the best of the SEC. However you'd like to do that. Let's see here. Run game is coming together. Hunter and Austin just need more of it. Let's take a look at that. So tonight, here's your rushing attack. Jarquez Hunter gets 13 carries for 91 yards on 1 touchdown. Damari Alston gets 4. Only he was running early too, and they stopped that a little bit. 4 attempts for 22 yards. Peyton Thorne 13 for 22. A lot of those were running for his life. Jeremiah Cobb only 1 attempt for 2 yards today, and that's your rushing attack. I will. And it's not that I disagree with the fact that they needed more, but I will continue to point out people that sometimes we say these things and we don't think about what we're actually saying. Auburn has been down a lot and has had to throw to the ball a lot, or else you would see those numbers be up. If we convert that fourth down, you're probably looking at Jarquez Hunter being close to 20 attempts this game, over 100 yards, probably pushing 120 the way he was running today. So to me, I'm encouraged by what I saw rushing wise against Georgia at their place, and hopefully we can continue to build on that and make that be more successful when we go on the road some more this month with the bye week coming up. These guys have every reason to decide to just mail it in, and they are not. These guys are putting in all the work every week, and I applaud that. I think it's a good point to bring up. From this. Again, we're not sitting here. Sorry, I just knocked the camera. See, I'm back in the studio. Everything's kind of a little bit cattywampus. I would say that don't want to just look for moral victory after moral victory, but you do have to look for the positives in types of these situations. Corey, I'm not going to bring your comment up because I will, while I'll do it, you and I had conversations public or privately about that. I'd never want to sit here and just dog somebody. But I will tell you that there were several times, whether it was individuals or the team, that I was very disappointed in our offensive line play tonight. Not the whole time, but, and I think that's I'm trying to kind of get my head around this year about. There are times where there seems to be we heading in the right direction, but we step back as well. Really, really rough start, allowing 2 sacks, or the first play of the game is a sack. Really, really rough start. A couple of whiffs, just opportunities for the offensive line to really help out not only the run game, but the pass game. And I think that's probably one of the weaker points for me tonight. And obviously already acknowledged the what I feel like is a poor decision by Peyton on that fourth down. but it's really his just one big mistake tonight, to be honest with you. It's not like there were other things that he didn't do right. You can't be too hard on the O-line. UGA has a great defense. They do. And certainly that is something that we've got to keep in context when we talk about these things. But I will tell you one thing that has been frustrating, and it's not just one player, but there are several times that there are players, whether they're talking about offensive line, quarterback, running back, maybe even defensive back as well, players that are very experienced, and they, they just aren't doing the job that you would expect them to do at times, and that's a little bit frustrating. Peyton Thorne today, 16 for 27. That obviously completion rating goes down a little bit with just slinging the ball around a lot at the end. So he's probably really somewhere in the, he probably should be like in the 14 of 25 regions, which still isn't great, but 200 yards, not really that bad all day. I thought Auburn kept Carson Beck in check today. Only 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. Can we just, what was that touchdown that they had to Bell, was it? I mean, these are the type of things that when it's Auburn, it goes the opposite. It's like what happens right there is our receiver tips it, it gets picked off and run back. Their receiver, and I think it was confirmed later, tips it barely, and it falls into the other guy's hands. And it's hard to really fault the guy. I think it was Faustin, maybe, for the missed tackle is what it was called, because he's so confused because when I saw that happen, I said, look, we played a pretty good game up to this point for the most part. But if that kind of stuff's going to happen, we're not going to win this game. That was just frustrating to watch. But yeah. Corey says, Kyle, do you think Freeze's system is overcomplicated and the players get confused on some of the plays? I would always caution you, Corey, because what you're bringing up is what was talked about by the announcers today. And by the way, I'm just going to be honest with you, terrible job by these announcers. I mean, they got people wrong left and right on both sides of the ball, like just didn't know what, they didn't make sense. A lot of the times these kind of narratives start. I'm not saying there's not some truth to that, but I am going to probably lean on what my understanding of the RPO is and say that it does look a little bit more complicated. And I do think if it is more complicated, then you can understand why it takes time for things to kind of get going with your program as a whole, not just with a player. If it is that complicated, it got a little better this game. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Yeah. Neil's pointing out some of the things that they said tonight. It was bad, really, really bad at time. They called us Ole Miss. They called us Kentucky. I mean, it was just a bad of the things that we had to complain about tonight. That's so minute, but I just was like, what are you talking about? Oh, that's what I need to start doing here, because I want to give you guys a heads up. If you follow us on X during games, typically, and I'm not saying this just to throw him under the bus because we already talked about it in our Conquer Club Discord a little bit. AJ is a longtime podcaster, volunteer with us that helps me on social media. Sometimes he loves to tweet during games, so usually that's him. I chime in a few things, but it's mainly him. So I thought I need to start kind of following through with some of his things, because we point out some things that I want to talk about. I want to find right here. So at the end of this is the last thing I'll say about the announcers. I'm sorry, but we want to talk about the game. The announcer said, we're advocating for Hugh to use a timeout when we were above 2 minutes. I mean, the 2-minute warning is coming heading into the end of the first half. And I'm sitting there like, do y'all know how this works? Like, why would he waste a timeout now when he's still going to have 2 minutes to work with when we get this stop, which I think we did at the end of it. I could be wrong. No, we did get that stop and then go on from there. It was just weird. It was just a weird time. A lot of commentary about Falk tonight from us, so I would highly, highly agree with that as well. They were watching other games. I'm sure they were. All right, a couple other stats tonight. What else? I know a lot of you are focused on a certain thing. Again, please keep the focus in our chat on this game. We'll get out of here in a second or in a few minutes, but I do want to spend some time talking about the game a little bit for you guys. We've talked about Peyton Thorne's stats. We've talked about rushing. Let's look at receiving. Keandre Lambert-Smith tonight with 7 catches for 95 yards. Again, proving he's the best. Malcolm Simmons. If Malcolm Simmons catches the ball, we are in an interesting situation here, which what I thought they tried to say it was a little bit underthrown. You can probably make that case, but to me, he put it in the breadbasket. Literally, you got to make that catch. He's a freshman, but he's getting, for those of you that have been calling for him to get those opportunities, he is getting those opportunities, and he's made the best of a lot of them, but still a freshman, right? So you get the ball to Lambert-Smith, Simmons, Cobb. Those two get multiple catches tonight. Then it's Cobb, Hunter, Alston, Fairweather, Lewis. So probably not your best passing day in terms of spreading the ball around, because you're looking at 3 true receivers, 3 running backs, and a tight end, 1 tight end catch. There was another drop at the tight end position today, which is very frustrating to see for me personally. Yeah, so there's their passing. Let's look at defense too. I want to see what Keldrick Falk's final numbers were. Dorian Mausi, for those of you in our preview show that predicted Dorian Mausi would be, I think there was one of you predicted he would be the leading tackler. You are the winner. Followed up closely by Austin Keys, who deserves a little bit more of a shout out. Keldrick Falk right behind him. So his complete day is 7 total tackles, all solo, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, obviously. So quite the day for him. Those are your top 3 tackle getters tonight. Jaron Thompson, Kayan Lee, Eugene Asante with 5, Crawford with 4, and everybody else is a little bit lower below that. I think DeMarcus Riddick missed a tackle, young guy as well, but we've seen him make some great plays. Those are the type of plays that I think you're seeing happen because of some youth. But overall, was this a perfect defensive day? Absolutely not. No, it wasn't. But it was, I think, a job good enough to give Auburn, if everybody else is doing their job offensively, special teams, take care of the job. Speaking of which, Jeremiah Cobb, I think, is just so close to busting one loose on kickoff returns. That man is just absolutely a beast when he just finds a little crease, and he is that close, I feel like, to coming around. Let's see here. I do not fear any team on our schedule. We have the ability to beat any of them. I'm viewing the season as prep for what is to come for next year. And I think you unfortunately have to look at it a little bit that way, but you still need to focus on this year too. I do think, and I think Austin and I we'll focus more on the Georgia game, Georgia weekend, in this week's show, the Auburn Experience podcast, but we'll probably the next one during the bye week take the 6 weeks overview, half the season overview, and what have we learned, all that stuff. And I think we'll probably talk about this, where the low point were, where some of the high points were, what are we trending towards. I do like the trend in small, minute ways. I know that's just, like morsels of something that's not really that satisfying, but unfortunately, I think you do have to find those small victories. Stan says Auburn could win or lose every game left. Yeah. I know what you mean, Stan. I do, but I had to have some fun with that right there. All right. I haven't done this enough because we've had a lot of really sometimes toxic post-game streams and others just very emotional. Everybody in the chat right now, who is your player of the game? You've got a lot of candidates. I think you've got Keldrick Falk. You have got Jarquez Hunter. You have got probably Lambert-Smith at times. Who's your player of the game for Auburn in this one? Good. I think that would be. Yes, we've tried this before, WT. It's got a mixed bag of results. And I kind of enjoy having a little bit less hecticness during week. We got one for Falk. David kind of sums it up here. He says, we're just not there yet on our depth and talent. This year is what it is. Freeze is recruiting well to get us back in the hunt. Just be patient. But you need to also enjoy what you got going on here. All right. And I know some of this is not super enjoyable. Let's wrap this up. I think that'll kind of do it there. 13-31, Auburn falls to Georgia heading into their bye week. A result that we definitely probably expected in some regard. But I think if you look at the context of how everything happened, there are some good points, very small, but very important bad things that did happen in this game. I walk away, honestly, kind of just even about it. Happy with some things, upset with some things, some players to call out, some bad moments to call out as well. But all that to be said, I hope you guys have enjoyed the first half of the season. Enjoy it while you have it, folks. It'll be gone before you know it. We're already 6 games into the season. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Smash that like button on the way out of here. And of course, stay tuned with us. Oh, sorry, I should have done this. Before I head out, I'll give you guys the cue cards and everything like that. The Auburn Experience, episode 96, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time with Austin, myself. And keep in mind as well, Wednesday, live call-in show where we'll talk about anything and everything within the Auburn Experience, Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. It's all fair game, and it's all for you. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, being part of it. Until we talk to you again, of course, thanks for hanging out with us, and War Eagle.